the delivery that followed. It arrived at my door just after midnight. A small black package with no label, no return address, nothing identifying where it had come from. I hadn't ordered anything, and the building's lobby was empty. The air smelled faintly metallic, like iron mixed with smoke. I lifted the box, and it felt impossibly heavy, heavier than it should have been for its size. My fingers shook. The moment I touched it, I felt a chill run up my arm, a vibration in the air, like something inside was alive and aware. I set it on the table. The lights flickered. Shadows in the corners of the apartment deepened, bending toward the box, leaning as if curious. A soft, deliberate knocking came from inside the package. I froze, staring at it, feeling its attention on me. At first, I thought it was my imagination, but the knocking repeated in patterns, deliberate rhythms, sometimes quick, sometimes slow. I pressed my ear to the box. A whisper slipped through the seams. "We are here." My heartbeat accelerated. I couldn't pull away. I tried leaving the apartment. The doorknob resisted, as if held by invisible fingers. Windows refused to open. Even the elevator doors wouldn't budge. The box slid toward me, slowly, almost knowingly, positioning itself between me and the exit. I attempted to call for help. The line was dead. Text messages sent themselves halfway through typing, filled with warnings. Do not open. Do not look. Yet curiosity dragged me forward, despite every instinct screaming to flee. The first night, I opened it just slightly. Darkness spilled out, heavier than it should have been, pressing against my chest. A whisper, soft and insistent, spoke directly into my mind. You invited us. I dropped the lid. The box hummed alive, vibrating with attention. Sleep became impossible. Shadows pooled around it, shifting forms I couldn't recognize. Shapes emerged in corners, twisting and curling. Faces without eyes staring, mouths opening silently. Every creak of the apartment sounded amplified. Every whisper carried meaning I could not decode. I tried ignoring it, setting it in a corner. The box moved closer while I slept. Each time I awoke, it was in a new position. Sometimes on the table, sometimes on the floor, sometimes hovering just slightly above it, casting impossible shadows that bent the walls. Objects from my apartment began appearing inside it. My keys, my wallet, even my phone. Each item was subtly warped, edges bending in ways that defied reality. It was collecting, cataloging, reshaping the world around it to suit something I could not understand. I started seeing movement in my peripheral vision. Figures, pale, faceless, crouched at impossible angles. They appeared in reflections, then disappeared if I looked directly. Whispers escalated, overlapping into languages I could not comprehend, pressing images and emotions into my mind without sound. I tried leaving again. The door refused. The walls of the corridor bent in impossible ways, hallways looping back into themselves. Every exit became a trap. The box glided ahead, predicting each step, cutting off every escape route. I realized I had been drawn here. I could not leave. The shadows became more distinct. Faces pressed against walls, limbs contorted unnaturally, watching me. The box pulsed faintly, vibrating with their presence. I felt its intelligence, its patience, a conscious being capable of learning my fears and testing them slowly. I attempted to destroy it. Hammer, fire, even chemicals. Nothing harmed the box. Every attempt left it untouched, sometimes in a slightly altered form, edges warped, seams perfectly sealed. Each failure intensified the whispers, voices blending into a chorus that seemed to come from every corner. Time lost meaning. Days, nights, hours all blurred together. The box pulsed in rhythm with my heartbeat. Shadows crawled across the walls, stretching impossibly, forming patterns I could not decode. I stopped trying to resist. I knew resistance was futile. The whispers now carried instructions, subtle, deliberate, teaching me. It guided my movements, my thoughts. Objects moved in response to me, not just the box. The apartment itself had become alive, and I was no longer in control. Every corner, every surface, every shadow was part of its consciousness. One night, I saw the hands, pale, long fingers emerging from the box, reaching toward the ceiling. They curled, tapped, traced symbols I could not understand. The whispers instructed me to move objects, arrange them in ways I did not comprehend. The apartment responded instantly, shadows bending to align with the instructions. I realized the horror box was not a container. It was a conduit, a living intelligence that could manipulate matter, perception, and fear itself. It waited, patient, studying, shaping reality around me. Escape was impossible. Observation had become my prison. I no longer know how many nights have passed. The box sits at the center of the apartment, pulsing faintly, feeding on attention, orchestrating shadows and whispers. Every sound, every vibration carries meaning. Every reflection shows shapes I cannot fully comprehend. If you are reading this, know the horror box waits. Curiosity invites it. Attention sustains it. Shadows are never empty. Silence is never safe. And doors may appear open while trapping you entirely. Watch your corners, your deliveries, and your reflections. They may already be inside. The stairwell that looped. The first time I noticed it, the stairwell seemed longer than it should have been. I stepped out of my apartment on the 7th floor and turned to descend, but the landing stretched impossibly, the walls bending slightly, almost breathing. Each step echoed, not in rhythm with my own, but with something else, a counterbeat, deliberate and mocking. Shadows pooled along the edges of the stairwell, shifting as if alive, stretching toward me in shapes that almost resembled hands or faces. I tried leaving the building. I took the elevator down. The button panel flickered and then froze. Pressing the ground floor did nothing. Exiting via the stairs, I realized the 7th floor appeared again, though I had started from the 2nd. The building had rewritten itself. The flickering lights pulsed in sync with my heartbeat, each flash revealing impossible angles. The staircase wound in ways that couldn't exist, steps folding back upon themselves, walls bending around empty air. The air smelled faintly metallic, sharp, like iron and ozone mixed with decay. I tried calling for help. My phone connected, then immediately cut out. Text messages sent themselves halfway through typing, filled with words I had not written. You are inside. There is no way out. Watch your steps. Every vibration felt like it came from inside my skull. The first night, I saw them. Figures at impossible angles, crouched on stairs above and below. Faces featureless, yet screaming silently. Their limbs bent in ways that made my stomach turn. Every glance I cast revealed another figure, always observing, patient, waiting for me to slip. I realized the building had become a maze. Landings multiplied, hallways looped, doors led back to themselves. Shadows moved independently of the light, creeping across walls, pooling where corners shouldn't exist. Every step I took was watched, measured, analyzed, a dance choreographed by unseen intelligence. Sleep became impossible. I slept sitting, eyes open, staring at the stairwell. Sometimes I heard whispers, soft but urgent, growing louder when I moved. Names, threats, warnings, words I had never heard before, repeated until they felt like they came from my own thoughts. The stairs began changing while I watched. Steps would tilt, warp, elongate. The railing twisted subtly, as if alive, coiling like a serpent. Shadows along the walls grew deeper, forming shapes that mimicked my movements, delayed just enough to make me question my own perception. At one point, I thought I saw another person ascending the stairs. Pale, faceless, moving in perfect silence. I called out, but it never responded. When I stepped closer, the stairs stretched farther, the landing elongating, the figure vanishing into impossible angles, leaving only the faint echo of movement. Objects from my apartment began appearing on the stairs. My keys, my wallet, a coffee mug all carefully placed on steps I had not reached. Each object was perfectly intact, but subtly warped, edges bending unnaturally, surfaces reflecting angles that shouldn't exist. I attempted to leave again, tried every exit. The stairwell looped infinitely. The ground floor never appeared. The lobby, when glimpsed through the doors, seemed to tilt backward into darkness, a void that pressed toward me, patient, indifferent to my fear. Whispers turned into chanting. They filled the walls, the railings, even the air itself. A language I did not understand pressed against my mind, forming images I could barely comprehend, faces without eyes, arms stretching impossibly, stairwells folding into themselves endlessly. I fell to the floor one night, exhausted, heart racing. The shadows leaned in closer, not attacking, not threatening directly, but observing. They mirrored my movements, delayed just slightly, testing patience, learning my habits. I realized I was trapped in a building that had become sentient, and it wanted me to understand my own helplessness. The horror box came to mind then, a story told in my mind, a metaphor that suddenly felt literal. Every shadow, every impossible angle, every whisper was a manifestation of observation, feeding on attention, shaping reality around it. I was the audience and the prey. I have stopped attempting to leave entirely. Every movement is measured, calculated. I walk the stairs slowly, counting each step, memorizing each warped landing, hoping for some pattern that will allow escape. But the building laughs silently, rearranging itself when I am not looking. If you are reading this, know that the horror box exists not just in stories, but in spaces unseen. Shadows, angles, and stairwells can bend impossibly around you. Observation is patient, intelligence can exist in walls, and silence is never safe. Watch your steps. The neighbor who wasn't there. I moved into the new apartment building, thinking I'd finally found peace. But the first night, I heard something impossible. Footsteps pacing in the empty unit next door. No lights, no sign of occupancy, yet the sounds were deliberate, echoing through the walls with uncanny precision. I pressed my ear to the wall, and there it was, a slow, methodical shuffle, like someone walking back and forth, turning, counting, observing. I tried knocking, shouting, but nothing responded. The footsteps paused briefly, then continued as if mocking my attempts. Days passed. The pacing became part of the building's rhythm. Morning or night, the sounds never stopped. Sometimes I heard whispers through the vent, faint words in a language I didn't know, repeating my name softly, insistently. I started avoiding the hallway, convinced the presence waited for me. I called the landlord. He said the unit had been vacant for months. No one had lived there since before the previous tenant moved out. The logic made no sense. I could hear it, but no one existed there. The walls themselves seemed to hum, vibrating slightly with each step I imagined. I began noticing other things. Shadows that didn't belong, flickering in the corner of my eye. The refrigerator hummed in an unnatural rhythm. Lights dimmed and brightened without explanation. Even objects in my own apartment seemed subtly rearranged when I wasn't looking. One night, I heard a knock at my door. I didn't answer. Then I heard it again, inside my apartment, faint but unmistakable. I followed the sound to the living room and froze. The door had never opened, yet the knocking came from behind it, as if something was trapped on the other side of reality itself. I started recording audio, hoping to catch the phenomenon. Playback was unnerving. Footsteps, whispers, thuds, all layered over each other. Occasionally, A voice would speak directly into the recording, clear and cold, saying, "We are here. We are waiting. You cannot leave." Sleep became impossible. Every creak of the building, every faint noise from the walls made my heart race. I began pacing the apartment myself, trying to anticipate the entity's movement, but the footsteps always stayed ahead, a ghostly presence I could never confront directly. One evening, I saw it. Not a shadow, not a flicker, but a figure through the frosted window of the empty apartment. Tall, featureless, pale, watching me. When I moved, it mimicked me, tilting its head with the same motions, its patience horrifying, like it had all the time in the world. I tried leaving. I packed bags, tried the elevator, the stairs, every exit. Each time, the building shifted subtly, corridors bending impossibly, doors leading back into my apartment. The footsteps returned instantly, pacing around me, pressing close enough to feel their weight. I stopped leaving entirely. The building became my cage. Time warped. Days felt like hours, hours like weeks. Shadows crowded the corners, whispering incessantly. I began leaving notes for myself, warnings, reminders of reality. Each time I returned, the notes were rewritten, the handwriting foreign yet familiar. The sounds became intelligible. The footsteps tapped out messages. Whispers described my routines, my thoughts, even things I had never said aloud. The presence wasn't random. It was studying me, learning me, waiting for a moment when I would slip and become entirely theirs. One morning, I awoke to silence. The apartment next door was empty, as usual, but the shadows lingered, heavier than before, pressing against walls, floors, and ceilings. I realized then that the entity didn't live next door. It lived in the building, in the walls, in the spaces I couldn't see. It began appearing in reflections, windows, even in the brief shine of my phone screen. Always behind me, always patient, never approaching too closely. I could feel it pressing against the air itself, shaping reality around me in subtle, impossible ways, teaching me that escape was a lie. I stopped touching mirrors, stopped leaving doors unlocked. I stopped opening windows. Every attempt to interact with the world was futile. The entity, patient and unyielding, had already mapped every inch of my life. I was prey in a cage of its own creation, alone but never alone. I hear whispers constantly now. Every sound, every vibration carries hidden meaning. The footsteps pace in sync with my heartbeat. The walls hum, the shadows move. The entity waits for the perfect moment, knowing my fear is its sustenance, knowing I cannot hide from it. If you are reading this, know that the horror box watches for anyone curious enough to peek too closely. Entities are patient, intelligence can linger unseen, and shadows never forget those who notice them. Look at your neighbors, your walls, and your floors. They may already be inside. The package that watched. It arrived at exactly 3:07 a.m., sliding silently under my apartment door. No return address, no label, nothing but smooth black tape wrapping a box that seemed heavier than it should be. I stared at it for minutes, every fiber of my body tense, waiting for some impossible warning. The hall was quiet, unnaturally quiet. No hum of the heater, no distant sirens, just the oppressive stillness of a city holding its breath. When I reached down, the box vibrated faintly, like a heartbeat under my fingers. I froze, convinced I could feel something inside watching me. I brought it to the kitchen table and circled it slowly, noticing for the first time how the shadows in the room had begun to stretch unnaturally. Corners warped, edges of the walls bending slightly, as if the apartment itself were leaning toward the box, eager to witness what I would do next. Then came the whisper, soft, distant, yet unmistakable. "Don't open it." My hand froze mid-air. I hadn't heard a voice, not human, not from anywhere in the room, yet it sounded intimately familiar, like a memory I had never lived. Hours passed. I tried leaving, tried to ignore it, but each time I stepped away, the box slid imperceptibly closer to me. Its weight remained the same, yet it moved inch by inch without any sound. I stared at it, my eyes darting to the edges of the room, the shadows flickering like something breathing behind them. When I finally opened it, there was nothing. A faint smell of metal and something older, something rotten, but no object, no paper, no clue. And then the floor vibrated slightly, almost imperceptibly, a rhythm like slow footsteps pacing beneath my apartment. I backed away, my phone in hand, trying to call anyone, but it wouldn't connect. The screen flickered, revealing briefly not my own reflection, but a pale face pressed just inside the display, eyes too dark, staring at me with impossible patience. I slammed the phone down. The box shifted again. This time, it opened itself slightly, the tape unspooling with a soft tearing noise that made the hair on my arms stand on end. A faint light glimmered from within, almost like a living pulse, and I realized the box was breathing. I left the kitchen, trying to escape, but the apartment had changed. The hallway stretched longer than it should have, shadows pooling unnaturally. The walls leaned toward me, as if pressing me down, whispering my name in voices I had never heard, but somehow recognized. Footsteps echoed softly behind me, not my own. They circled, slow and deliberate, pressing in rhythm with my heartbeat. I turned, saw nothing, but felt eyes, hundreds of them, staring from every corner, every shadow, the box somehow watching from the center of it all. I tried to leave the building. The door refused to open. Windows rattled violently when I tried to push them. The box glided silently ahead of me, moving as though anticipating every step, every hesitation, cutting off any path that might lead to escape. By morning, I realized I hadn't slept. The room felt alive, breathing, stretching. Mirrors reflected impossible images. The box floating in midair, shadows writhing, faces pressing against walls that shouldn't exist. I tried to cover every reflective surface, every window, but the reflections seeped into the walls themselves. I began to notice small changes in reality. Objects subtly rearranged themselves. Photos of people I didn't recognize appeared on shelves. My own handwriting appeared on scraps of paper where I had never written. The box seemed to be teaching me, bending my perception, turning my apartment into something I couldn't recognize. One night, I saw it move differently. Not sliding, not hovering, but twisting, folding, impossible angles bending around it, as if it existed in more than one dimension. The soft whisper returned, insistent, now layered with multiple voices. You cannot leave. We are inside you. I tried recording everything. The cameras showed only static, but I could hear the whispers clearly on the playback, layered over each other, overlapping, voices speaking directly into my thoughts. I realized then that the box was alive, patient, intelligent, and it had been observing me long before I had noticed. Time became meaningless. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. The box pulsed with a rhythm that matched my heartbeat, slowing when I panicked, quickening when I tried to resist. Shadows moved independently, crawling across floors and ceilings in patterns I couldn't predict. I was losing the ability to distinguish reality from hallucination. Then the whispers began to form sentences. You opened it. Now we are here, always watching, always waiting. You cannot hide. The words pressed against my skull, repeated in every corner, echoing in the walls, emanating from the box itself, vibrating through the floor. I backed into the corner of the room, the box at the center of the apartment, glowing faintly, impossibly. Shapes began to emerge from it, amorphous, fluid, watching with patience that lasted minutes and hours at once. I could feel them observing me, learning every twitch, every hesitation, waiting for me to make a mistake. I don't remember when I stopped trying to leave. The apartment became my cage. Every attempt ended in failure, every corner looping back to the kitchen table where the box waited. Even breathing felt observed, measured, catalogued. I realized I was no longer alone in my own body. The shadows became more distinct. Faces emerged within them, pale, expressionless, eyes voids of black. They whispered constantly, a choir of impossible patience, pressing close enough to feel the heat of their presence. The box pulsed in the center, alive, responding to them, shaping the room around it. I have stopped speaking to anyone. I leave notes for myself to try to remember reality, but the box rearranges them, replacing words with symbols, signs I do not understand. Time has no meaning here. Shadows linger where they should not. Every sound carries hidden messages. Every silence is full of threats. If you are reading this, know that the horror box waits for anyone curious enough to open it. It is patient, intelligent, and relentless. Shadows linger where they should not. Silence is never safe. Watch your doors, your windows, and corners of your rooms. It waits, always waits. The apartment above. I moved into the building thinking it was quiet, a small, neat apartment that promised peace. But the noises started almost immediately. Footsteps overhead, pacing when the floor should have been empty, scratching sounds in the walls that didn't belong to anyone living here. At first I ignored it, told myself it was the usual city noise, neighbors returning late, shifting furniture. But the pacing grew precise, methodical, almost synchronized with my own movements in the apartment. Every time I sat down, they would pause, as if listening. I began leaving lights on at night, hoping it would deter whatever was making the sounds, but the floor above never went dark. Shadows flickered beneath my ceiling lamp, shapes that moved when I wasn't looking directly at them, faces I couldn't quite focus on. The first night I saw a figure. It was just a blur, a silhouette against the frosted window of the apartment above. I froze, heart hammering, imagining it was a trick of the light, until I realized the shape mimicked my own movements, sliding along the walls with impossible precision. I installed a small camera near the ceiling, just to capture the sound. The playback made me nauseous. Footsteps circling my apartment, but no one ever appeared on my balcony. No reflection in the windows, no door opening. It was like something had learned to move without touching anything. Every night it escalated. Soft scratching under the floorboards, a whispering that made no sense, almost syllables I thought I recognized. I began leaving notes on the floor, scraps of paper to mark whether anyone was there, and each morning they were gone, folded neatly, rewritten in handwriting that wasn't mine. I called the building manager. He told me no one lived above me, that the apartment had been empty for months. I pressed him, asked if anyone had been renovating, if workers had been coming late at night, but he insisted. No one, nothing. The noises, he said, must be in my head. Then I started seeing the faces in the ceiling vent, pale and expressionless, pressing close as I tried to sleep. Every time I moved, they moved with me, tilting their heads, whispering words I couldn't hear, soft and urgent. I couldn't look directly, and yet I couldn't stop looking, trapped in a rhythm I couldn't escape. Food deliveries began to arrive that I hadn't ordered. Packages with no names, boxes heavy with contents that shifted when I picked them up. Sometimes I found notes inside, simple words like, "Don't look or watch," scrawled in ink that almost glowed in the dark. One night, I followed the noises into the hallway. My apartment door closed behind me on its own, the key left in the lock, swinging slightly. I peered down the corridor, the lights flickering, and saw shadows pooling in corners, bending around walls, moving against the geometry of the building, as if gravity had forgotten them. I retreated, panicked, and the door slammed, leaving me trapped inside. The shadows condensed into forms that hovered near the ceiling, faces pressing against the walls, mouths moving silently. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't scream. My own reflection in the hallway mirror stared back at me, but the eyes were wrong, too dark, unblinking. Sleep became impossible. I would lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, hearing the footsteps pacing, whispering my name, laughing softly when I tried to close my eyes. I stopped leaving the apartment, stopped answering the phone, stopped looking out the windows. The building became a cage, the floorboards a symphony of things I couldn't see. I tried moving, but the shadow followed me into every room, trailing my steps, hiding in corners, emerging when I least expected it. Lights flickered at random. The refrigerator hummed in unnatural rhythms. The faucet dripped in patterns that resembled tapping, knocking, signals I couldn't decipher. The whispers became coherent. At first, faint words, then sentences, a litany of warnings and threats. "We are above," they said. "We know you. Do not sleep." The voices echoed in the walls, in the floor, in the air around me, overlapping until I could no longer distinguish my own thoughts. I installed cameras in the hallway, thinking I would catch an intruder. Nothing appeared on the recordings. The motion sensors never triggered. But late at night, I would review the footage and see something impossible. Shadows moving opposite the laws of physics, slipping through the ceiling into my apartment, folding space with each step. The last night I slept in that apartment, I awoke to a heavy silence. The usual pacing had stopped. The air was thick, pressing against my chest, my lungs straining with the absence of sound. I dared to peek through the peephole and saw nothing, yet I felt it. All of it, watching, waiting. I grabbed the nearest box, anything to shield myself, and bolted for the door. The corridor stretched impossibly long, folding and bending, the walls pulsating. Shadows poured from the ceiling vents in slow, deliberate waves, faces pressing against the walls, whispering and laughing. I ran, but every hallway led back to my apartment. The final whisper came from the vent above me, clear, sharp, and final. "You can't leave. We are inside now." The lights flickered one last time, and I understood I had never truly been alone. The horror box had always been waiting, patient, silent, feeding on attention and fear. I sit in the dark now, writing this, barely daring to move. The floors are quiet for now, but I know it's only a lull. Every sound is magnified, every shadow a possible shape pressing close. If you're reading this, you're part of it now. The box is open, and it waits for you. Watch the corners, listen to the walls, and never close your eyes.